What's up, fight fans, and welcome back to the Rusty Cage podcast. Ryan Jarrell, Greg Williams here as always, and our special guest here today is the American Psycho himself, Brody McDougal, on the show. Brody, you got another big fight right around the corner, my man. September the 14th, Cage Titans 67. You're taking on Lorenzo Fitzgerald. I'm excited to see you back in action, my man. How have you been?
I've been doing awesome, man. Just excited to be back in action. Had a couple little speed bumps in the road that slowed us up a little bit the last couple of months, but 5 months after that pro debut, we're back here looking to get to 2-0.
Nice. Well, you mentioned that one of the questions I had for you was, why the reason for so much time off. Can you talk about those speed bumps, or is it something that you don't want to get into?
No, I mean, I'm totally open with talking about things. Yeah, like you get little injuries, nothing that like required surgery or anything, but things that just made it hard for me to like go into a full training camp. As well as I had a little bit of difficulty getting some matchups at just kind of like some key opportunities or key times when you're looking for matchups, for different fights and for different organizations. So that had been a little bit of a challenge as well. So those two things kind of cumulatively together gave me this little bit of a delayed time. But again, it seems to kind of happen every time after I fight, to be honest. It's like usually big fireworks, like, oh, holy shit. Like I kind of remind everybody again, people get kind of scared again. I kind of have to go in the shadows for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden someone will kind of step up and be like, yeah, I want that. And then I get to go back out there and do what I do.
That's got to be, I think, one of the hardest things for someone in your position who's still fighting on the regional scene when you're as good as you are to get people that want to step up and say, yes, okay, I want to fight Brody. I can't imagine that there's a lot of people out there that want to step up and raise their hand and step into the cage with you. Is that something that gives you maybe even more confidence to know, hey, I mean, there's not many people that really want to get in there and fight me. They must know how good I am.
I mean, yeah, I guess a little bit. I know how good I am, so it's like I don't really need anybody else's verification. I know how good I am. I know how good my teammates are. I know how good I perform against my teammates, and how highly I look and tote them. So yeah, I have to have the same confidence in myself, and I'm a very, very confident individual.
The pro debut, that was a win over Steven Stengel. And it's kind of like, I mean, that's a tricky fight. I mean, you know better than me, but just looking at Steven Stengel, when you look at his record, he doesn't have the best record, but he's dangerous. You've seen him get in there. He's had some good wins over some tough opponents. What is the mindset when you accept a fight like that? Because you're not just supposed to win. You're supposed to go in there and win impressively. Is it a little bit more tricky when you're like, okay, I'm going to take this fight?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. You know what I mean? It's tough mentally as far as like that was a 24-hour switch. So Steve took that fight on 24 hours notice, which is pretty wild. Again, so it was like the whole like, is this guy actually going to show up kind of a thing? And then yeah, like definitely he gets a lot of shit, but I mean he has like close to like 40 professional fights, and he does have like close to 10 wins on his record. He has beaten some people. He's beaten. I think he beat what's his name? Gerald Meerschaert fights in the UFC right now. So I mean, he does have a couple of good wins. He has a hard right hand. We've seen him put people down to that before. And he is a veteran of the game. You know what I mean? He's got some tricky little shit. He did trip me with that little foot sweep. You know what I mean? So like he definitely has things that he does well at times. So yeah, it was like kind of just like a big mental hurdle. Like, again, is this guy going to show up? And then again, I have to kind of prepare for like, what Steve does. Steve, comes out and fights hard. I'll give him that. Like he's a trier. The dude's going to try his ass off. So we had to be prepared for that. And again, it was my pro debut, and this guy's got close to like 40 professional fights, and I'm taking this fight 24 hours notice. So a lot of people I don't think necessarily gave me like the respect I deserve from that. Not that I really care, I don't give a shit anyway. But yeah, like I think that was a little bit tougher than a lot of people realize. And yeah, I was happy to go in there and do it. And obviously, came out with a first round win.
So with everything that you just said, the obstacles that you had to get through to get that win and do it as impressively as you did. How would you rate your performance on a 1 to 10? Like, would you give it maybe like an 8 or?
Nah, that was like a 4 for me, man. Like maybe worse than that. It was pretty shit. But I was kind of all right with it because again, it was the pro debut. I did have a lot of like some nerves going from that. I went in that fight with some injuries that I didn't really talk about. I don't really want to talk about. But I did go into that fight with some injuries. I went through that camp with a lot of injuries. I will say I only did, I think it was like 3 or 4 sparring sessions for that entire camp because I was really, really beat up. But again, I just had a lot of confidence in myself and my abilities that a 50% Brody McDougal would have still got the job done that night. So even if I was probably a little bit closer to a 50% Brody McDougal, I went in there and still got the job done.
And what are you doing for work right now? Do you have a job, or are you just training full time?
Training full time, man. I'm a full time professional mixed martial arts fighter. Not gonna lie, it's hard. Not making a lot of money right now. Obviously, I haven't fought in 5 months. I've been teaching private lessons, which helps kind of offset costs. But yeah, it's hard. I quit my 9 to 5 last year. I had a very comfortable marketing job, working 9 to 5, and I gave it up to pursue this dream. And I love every second of it. Every even the struggle of it. I just kind of look at it as like this is my price I have to pay. I'm in that part of my life right now where this is what I'm going to have to pay. I'm going to have to make these sacrifices right now, eat a little bit of shit right now, but it's going to all pay off at the end.
Happy for you, man. Greg, I know you got plenty to ask Brody.
Yeah, so I know that Kyle Pufall is now training full time, right? He's no
Yes.
longer. Okay, so you guys got a few guys up there. Who are your main training partners? I see that. Is that a Nathaniel Grimard shirt on?
Yes, it is.
Of course.
Hey, dog. Yeah.
Love that guy. So yeah, man, is he obviously one of your training partners?
Yeah,
Who
Nate's
else?
one of my training partners. Not necessarily a main training partner. Nate's a 45er. We kind of split the room usually at like kind of like 55ers. We'll work down with 45ers, but me being a welterweight, I don't really work with 45ers quite as much. We'll like grapple together and stuff like that, but we,
Yeah.
we don't really spar hard together or anything. For as far as like my main training partners, Kyle Hill, always my main training partner, definitely like my number one training partner. Me and Kyle kind of like if there's class, usually we're drilling the class together type of a thing. Then Ozzy, obviously I work with Ozzy a lot too. Lots of like hard sparring rounds, lots of hard live work with Ozzy. David Burke, Ross Danner, my wrestling coach, Kyle Pufall. Some of our new Amis that we got coming up too. We got a lot of like Ami champs that are real studs now that have been giving us really good work as well. Jared St. Jean, Brett Martin, who's fighting for an NEF amateur title. He's been coming down sparring with me every Saturday. So that's been awesome. He's been a really good look too. Just kind of being a bigger, stronger body. Lorenzo, while being a little bit on the shorter end, did fight at 185 at one time. So we, expect him to be, pretty dense and a pretty strong dude. So that's been good to get working, with Brett and David. Just to kind of feel that 185 strength and feel very confident dealing with that. But yeah, that's really kind of the main training partners, and then obviously Nick Miles, my striking coach, getting working with him all the time. Devin Powell, my head coach. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Got a pretty tight team. Just kind of the nose toast guys. I really haven't been going out anywhere else for this camp. Or anywhere really within the last 6 months, just staying close to home, just working hard.
Well, with a team like that, I mean, you got guys coming to you. Like, I mean, you got Ozzy coming over. Obviously, he came up with Lakes Region Valley Tudo. I
Yep.
think probably still, they're still probably good and everything, but he's moved over there with Brett coming down and training with you. So you don't need to go anywhere. You got full-time guys there. Is Kyle Hill full-time now?
Yeah, Kyle is also full time. We got, let's see, yeah, Pufall, me, Cahill. We might be the only 3 full time pro fighters right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got some other guys, that are coming up here quick. Some of our Amis that are looking at their own double champ status. Usually, once you're a double champ at Ami, that's right around the time, it's time for you to leave. and move on to the professional ranks and kind of, leave those belts and that for the, the people that are still up and coming once you kind of hit that point. So it's a really exciting time in our gym. We're growing like crazy. Tons of new Amis coming in too. We got like some high school kids. We got like an 18-year-old kid, Ty, coming and fighting up in NEF this coming weekend. Also Sean is another kid fighting in NEF this weekend, who's also like 18 years old. So we got like some really young kids coming in that are showing out, just like some young stud wrestlers. So it's really cool, just to watch the gym grow, kind of see these next generations. Starts making me feel a little bit older, which is funny. I've only been doing this for like 4.5 years. But like now I'm kind of one of the older guys in the gym. I'm definitely like more of a veteran guy in our gym. We have so many amateurs that are coming up. And I'm almost like the third generation now. We kind of have like our crew of pros. We had like our top level Amis. Now we kind of have like this new rebirth of Amis coming in as well. So it's just really exciting time for everybody.
That's awesome. And one last thing, were you a double Ami champ?
Yeah, I was. I had the reality belt in Connecticut, and then I had the Cage Titans Ami.
And you got that by fighting Ozzy Martin, which was arguably one of the best amateur fights I've ever seen. Absolute banger. And I really like Ozzy. I called his debut for Combat Zone, and he beat up a guy that looked so much older. Well, I don't use the word older because look, I use seasoned. He looked like he was
more mature.
more mature. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he just put on a show, man. He was just electric. I even said, I was like, this kid's electric. So he's an exciting fighter. Yeah, so it's great to have him in your camp. So was that your decision before that fight? If I win that title, I'll go pro? Or did it happen?
Yeah, definitely. If I hadn't won that, I don't think I would have gone pro. I definitely probably would have stuck around, tried to do something else. But yeah, after being Aussie, that was pretty much the stamp on my amateur career. Like what else was I really gonna do at that point? Like Aussie still, is beating the shit out of everybody at 170 amateur. Like I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind in New England who the scariest dude at 170 pounds at amateur is anymore. It's Ozzy Martin. So after I beat him, I was pretty sure that Ozzy was going to continue to go on this run that he has. So yeah, I knew it was kind of my time to move on. And again, you see other pros at your gym that are good pros, and you see how you're performing against them. And obviously I have conversation with Devin, and I'm 27 years old. It was time.
It totally makes sense. I mean, that win over Aussie, there's nothing else for you here amateur wise. It was time to go pro, especially with where you're at right now. Like with your age, you're not even close to your prime yet. You still have years to go before you hit your physical prime.
Yeah. And again, like, could I have stayed an amateur and like beat the fuck out of a couple more people just to do it? Like, yeah, of course. But I don't think that really would have been doing anything else for me. I don't think I'm someone that like needed the extra experience or anything. I think, we all knew it was time for me to go, time for me to make money doing this thing.
Yeah. And you're risking injury as well. So
yeah, 100%.
Get it while you can. Yeah.
I want to ask you about someone real quick, but before I do that, you mentioned, Brett Martin being at Nostos. I want to ask you about Brett's new hairdo, and if that's something that you can do in the future. You're going to just let it go and let your soul glow?
It's funny you say that. So if you look like back on my Instagram, I was a hockey kid. I had the flow back in the day. So I had it, man. I had the long flowing hair. I love it, dude. I like what Brett's got going on. It's cool. He does look kind of like a different guy, honestly, with it. Especially like when it's like he's like completely clean shaven and he's got like the long flowing locks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean Brett's the man. I'm really happy for him. He's gonna look spectacular this Saturday.
Brett is the man. You're probably too young for this, but do you remember the original Coming to America with Eddie Murphy?
Unfortunately, I do not. No, I love Eddie Murphy though. Delirious was like the first stand-up special I ever watched when I was growing up. So
Okay. Well, you got to go back and watch this. It's a classic. Greg, I know you know what I'm talking about, but his new hairdo, it reminds me of that commercial that they made in that movie about just let your soul go. I'm not going to try to do the actual singing part of it, but I feel
Thank
like
you.
Brett should do like a parody, like a comedy video where he kind of does like a spoof on that. What do you think, Greg?
I would watch it, man. I love Brett, and he'd probably be up for it. He's a great dude.
Yeah, no doubt. And so before I forget, I wanted to ask you about, obviously Brett. One of the best fights that I saw, and luckily I was fortunate enough to call it with Greg, was when your teammate David Burke fought Devin Corson, and to me that was one of the most impressive wins I've ever seen because of the respect that I have for David Burke. I think he is strong as an ox. He's got a ton of power. He's got a ton of heart, and Devin Corson looked amazing in that fight. What was your takeaway from it? And how good do you think Corson can be? I mean, he's kind of gone back and forth to different weight classes. I think we might see him around your weight class. Is that someone that you feel like you might face at some point in the near future if he turns pro, obviously?
yeah, I don't know. So Devin and I have trained together before. We sparred together before. This was after he fought David. He came and trained down our gym. Might have just been one time. Either way. So, like it's kind of one of those things. Once somebody comes down and like trains with you, like usually you like that's kind of a sign like they're not trying to fight you. So I would kind of assume that was what that was. I think, like he talks very kindly to me every time he sees me anywhere, goes out of his way to say hi to me, see how I'm doing, stuff like that. So he would be someone that like I would be surprised if he was like trying to fight me. I wouldn't be going out of my way trying to fight him either. You know what I mean? Like not because I don't want the fight or anything. I just like respectfully, like I like him as a person. Like I'm not really trying to go out of my way to try and hurt him. I definitely like go pretty hyper violent too. So I'm not like trying to necessarily fight somebody I like. Like I do think that would be something that would be really a challenge for me. I know like one day in the UFC or whatever, like that might happen, but I'd prefer to like wait to have to go through that until I was, at like a higher level to have to fight, someone that I'm more friendly with.
Sure.
But yeah, I like him as a kid. He's a great fighter. He's definitely good. He's got some talent. I think he's got some holes that he could fill. But yeah, he's a good kid.
I think pound for pound, both you and him are two of the better fighters that I've seen in the New England area, or at least close up in person. I a lot of respect for both of you guys. So I just wanted to ask that question. How big do you get now, Brody? Like this fight is at welterweight. What's the heaviest you get when you're out of camp?
Like 205 ish.
So is that normal? After every fight, do you get up to about 205?
It's weird. Usually, like right after act, like my body usually takes a little bit of time to put weight on after I fight for whatever reason. I don't know if it's like a weird kind of like a reaction my body just has to weight cutting. But usually like, after I cut and after I fight and stuff, I'm usually hanging out around like the 185, 190 mark for a little while. Before, I blow back up to, 200, 205, whatever. But again, like that's me, eating like crap and stuff after I just fought. And like I'll still be training, but I'm not training like I'm in camp. So yeah, that's when I get a little bit heavier. And then yeah, when we start dieting down and taking things serious, it comes right off though.
Yeah, I mean you're tall and very lean as it is, anyways. My guy Joseph Holmes got to get some work in with you when he came up last year to do the NEF card with Greg and I, and he raved about you. He said you got to watch out for this kid, Brody McDougal. He's the real deal. When you hear stuff like that, someone that had made it to the highest of levels in the UFC, what is that like to hear? I mean, I know you hear it from Devin probably all the time about how good you can be, but when you hear it from someone that really was just there, does that make an impact on you one way or another?
Kind of. I mean, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like it's cool to hear. I appreciate it. I don't expect anything less. Like if fucking Hamzat came in the room tomorrow, like I would expect to perform. Like, you know, like genuinely, like if I got fucked up, like I'd be upset. Like at the end of the day, like that's my home, that's my gym, you know, like someone comes in there, like what are you gonna do? Like that's like someone coming in your living room being like, you know, show me what you do. Like I'm gonna have to, you know, represent. So yeah, like I'm not surprised, you know, like I think I'm of that caliber. Um, you know, sparred and lots of, you know, UFC guys, lots of people that are really high level and other things. And, you know, yeah, no, I would expect myself to perform that way. It is reassuring, you know, it feels good when people tell you that you're good, of course, you know, and when they tell you you're working hard and tell you all the other things you want to hear, you know, that always feels good. But, you know, I don't give a fuck one way or the other, man. I know where I'm going.
I love it, man. I love that answer. You mentioned Hamzat, so let me just sidestep for a second here. Do you think he beats Robert Whitaker? You don't, right? You're gonna pick Robert Whitaker to win. That's my guy.
I mean Bobby Knuckles is the shit. I want him to, man. It just he's had a like a tough streak lately. He only fights killers. I don't know. Hamzat is really good. You know, he got exposed a little bit, I think, in the Kamaru fight. He just kind of like it showed that, you know, when he's up against truly like a top tier UFC fighter, that, you know, he's not going to be able to just run through him. It's going to expose a little bit of his gas tank. But yeah, man, I mean, he's a hell of a fighter, hell of a wrestler. He puts it all together really well. His fight against Gilbert Burns was sick. Um, I don't know.
Yeah. Who are your
I really
favorite
don't know.
fighters to watch right now, whether it's just the UFC or any promotion?
Yeah, so I really like honestly watching like a lot of the smaller guys. I like watching the more dynamic movement, the speed. I really love Sugar Sean O'Malley striking, Ilya Tapora, Max Holloway, Corey Sandhagen, you name it. Really anybody like that, anyone with really that kind of style. Um, as far as like people at like my weight class that I've been watching that I study a lot, Shavkat, obviously Hamzat, you know, a lot of like Kamaru from back in the day, Leon. I think like Leon and I have similar striking styles, and like movement. Um, Shara Bullet's really fun. I really like his kicks, so I've been watching a lot of him, taking some stuff away from stuff that he does. But yeah, I don't really have like a particular fighter that's my favorite fighter. I definitely have, you know, like I would call it more of like a style I like to watch, which is just kind of like more dynamic, free flowing striking.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Why don't we transition to this Cage Titan 67 card, shall we?
Yeah,
Again, September the 14th. If I'm not mistaken, this is your fifth time overall fighting for the promotion. Um,
yeah, sounds right.
yeah. How do you like fighting for Cage Titans and Mike Polvera? Just the venue. It looks absolutely amazing. Just tell me a little bit about fighting for Cage Titans.
Yeah, I love it. It's kind of feels like home now, you know. I really like fighting there. I have a great working relationship with Mike and everybody else over there. Um, you know, it's comfortable. Just you know everybody out back. You kind of you know your routine. Like I know my places I like to eat. Like you know everything. You know I know how to cut weight down there. I know everything from the time I show up Thursday morning to the time I leave Sunday morning. I know every minute of what every day is already going to look like. So that's nice, you know, that's a convenience that a lot of people don't have, especially if you're going to fight for another promotion or a promotion that kind of moves around and travels. That can be a little bit tougher. You don't necessarily know what your day to day is going to look like. So that's just nice. It's convenience. And again, I have a good overall working relationship. I like fighting there. It's one of the top organizations in New England anyway. They, you know, Mike tries really hard to go out and get me good fights. He likes me. I think, you know, he wants to build me and help get me to that next level. So yeah, no, I like being there a lot.
Lorenzo Fitzgerald is the opponent. He's 0-1 as a pro, 3-2 as an amateur. What do you know about him?
Yeah, he was jiu-jitsu world champion at blue belt, in IBJJF. Definitely like you know, so from that you would assume he's more grapple heavy. When you watch his tape, he does strike a lot. He stands Likes to stand and bang from the looks of a lot of his tape. He looks like he's gonna try and fight. I think I see some holes in his game that I can take advantage of. He's definitely going to be, again, a strong guy. He fought at 185 for the middleweight amateur belt against Jude Offer, who, is like a very big, physically imposing person. And went the distance with him. So, he's definitely a strong dude. We'll see how much that strength can transfer down to 170. That's tough for a lot of guys that are real big, that are making big cuts. So we'll see what that cut's going to be like on him. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I like this fight a lot. He asked for this fight, which is even better for me. I like that even better when people ask for it. Not a lot of people come asking for it, obviously. So when someone does ask for it, we like to make sure we show up for him. Speak the boogeyman's name, he shall appear.
Ooh, I like it. Maybe a transition from the American Psycho to the Boogeyman as a nickname. Is that something?
Nah, I like the American Psycho. We're riding with it. Still selling too much merch already.
Okay, fair enough. Greg, I know you got some stuff for Brody about this matchup.
Yeah, I mean Lorenzo's been around. Like I've been coaching for a while, and he's around when I started coaching. Now with Terry Dow at the training station since 2010. I think he took his first fight as an amateur. So he's been around. He's a big dude. I had him on the radar for some of our guys when my guys were fighting. As a tough fighter, and 0-1 as a pro. He got knocked out in his last one. Yeah, so I know you're not going to underestimate him. It's kind of like Steven Stengo, right? Like, dude's been around.
I mean, in Lorenzo's defense, he's a much better fighter than Steven Stengle, for sure. Much more dangerous. And again, like, this is one of those fights, like, I took it very well knowing, like, I'm probably not going to get the respect from this fight that I should when it's over. And again, that's okay. I'm about proving things to myself and, building myself here. But, he is a very good mixed martial arts fighter. Like, I'm not trying to take anything away from Lorenzo Fitzgerald at all. Again, BJJ world champion. That's very impressive. And the dude's gonna come to fight. He's an impressive guy. He's a physical specimen. Super athletic, super explosive. I'm not really trying to take anything away from this guy at all, and I really don't have anything against Lorenzo in general at all. I just know I'm a way fucking better mixed martial arts fighter, and he came, calling my name. So
he came looking for you, and what that tells me is, he's got to be getting older. So if he's been around in the game for like 14 years since his first fight to now, it's been 14 years. So he's probably looking to call out somebody like you, and see where his career is going to go. Because he doesn't. I imagine, this is a grueling, devastating sport. You can't stick around for 25, 30 years in this game. You got to get it while
yeah, no. And I mean, he's a little older too, so I don't know what his goals overall are for this game either. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's trying to fight in the UFC. I don't know if that's something that he thinks is a realistic expectation of himself. I think, probably more than anything, he's a local dude that wants to fight tough people and wants to have the biggest, coolest, toughest fights, and be able to say, I fought this guy, I fought that guy. And I respect that too. I have nothing against that at all. Again, I got nothing against the guy at all, other than the fact he called my name and asked to fight me. So now I'm gonna have to fuck him up.
Have to fight somebody good. He's got it. He's got it coming up. So it's great. One last question for you. I'm impressed with your intelligence and your knowledge of the game and everything. And I know what you're looking to do. I know you want to make a name for yourself, get into the UFC, of course, become a champion. That's everybody's goal. After that, any aspirations to be a coach?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I already do coaching right now. I do private lessons. It's kind of like my quote unquote weekly gig. I just do kind of like a couple a day to supplement some income. But yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, I don't necessarily ever have the ambition to have like my own gym one day or anything that large. But I always want to be a martial artist. I always want to be, the old guy that's still kicking the young guys' asses in the gym. Just, even if not in like a direct coaching role, definitely like a mentorship role, just being like that veteran guy that's at the gym that, you know, the young fighters can talk to and, you know, go to for advice. You know, just to be that guy that's been there, done that already, you know, and just give back to the next generation.
Let's say the mature guy, not the old guy. I'm triggered again, but
Yeah. I'm excited to be the old guy though, man. It's
I
cool.
know.
It's cool even now. You look at the quote unquote the old guys in the gym that are still tough and rugged, and like, you know, I'm envious. Like one day I hope I can still be like that. You know, we got guys in our gym that are, you know, 56 years old that, you know, six packs, they train every single day, and you know, like they're studs, and you know, it's really, really impressive.
Just keep grinding. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still on the grind. That's awesome.
Brody, give me a sound bite here that Michael Polvera can use for this upcoming fight. When you look at this fight and how it ends, give me a prediction. How does it end?
Prediction fireworks, man. Not I don't want to say too much more than that. He's gonna shoot desperately. He's gonna be shooting for his life. It's gonna end with fireworks.
I love it, man. And as far as the rest of this calendar year, 2024, I cannot believe it's already September. It's wild.
I
Are
know.
you hoping to fight again? As long as you're healthy, would you like to get at least one more in this year?
I would love to try and get one more in. Yeah, definitely. I think as long as timing and everything works out, I know it's tough. Just the way the cards are shaking out at the end of the year this year is a little bit tougher. Like I think there's like some cards in like early November, so that might be kind of hard to turn around for, unless I'm, you know, obviously like completely healthy coming out of this fight. So yeah, you know, we'll have to see. I don't really look at anything past September 14th. You know, September 14th is just kind of my day right now. I just fully focus on that. And then as soon as, you know, 10 p.m. or whatever, after I get in there and get out of that cage, then, you know, we immediately start looking at what's next.
Well, I can't wait to see you back in there, my man. Best of skill come fight night again, September the 14th. Cage Titan 67. The American Psycho, Brody McDougal faces Lorenzo Fitzgerald in a welterweight bout. Brody, great talking to you again, bud. It's been far too long. We'll have to do this a little more often. Before we do sign off today, I want you to give the floor to you. If there's any sponsors you have that you want to thank or anyone else that you just want to give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you. Again, obviously being a full-time professional MMA fighter, these sponsors, you know, help out so much. So I have to definitely thank Top Gun Roofing, Sergeant Smith's Drain and Clean, McInnes Quality Builders, Primal Fit Gym, Middleton Chiropractic, Duffy, Riley Pierce Fierce, Elevate Design, French Masonry, Kind Farms Reserve, the original Wheelman, and a new you hypnotherapy. I'd like to thank all of them. They're all unbelievable supporters of me. They all go genuinely like above and beyond anything that I ask any of them. They're really just people that want to see me succeed. I probably don't do nearly enough for them. I try my best, but they really go above and beyond. So I really appreciate all of them.
Perfect. Well, come back and see us again soon. You'll definitely have to come back and join the podcast.
Absolutely, Ryan. Yeah, I'd come on anytime, man. Just hit me up. I'd love to be on.
Thank you. Have a good day, buddy, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. See you, Greg. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, here he is, Lucas Rosa on the program, who will be fighting next September the 13th at Combat FC 8 when he takes on Bruce Richards. Lucas, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm great. Just come back from training, so yeah, excited.
Well, we're excited to see you back in action, my man. I first want to just start with your most recent victory. That was in August at CES 78, round one RNC victory. I mean, anything you can kind of take away from that, or was that pretty much like a picture perfect performance for you?
I mean, no, there were definitely things there was something in the beginning where it's almost looks like almost like a north-south kind of choke. But it's not quite that. There's like a few good pictures of it where I was kind of behind him trying to like choke him back while I leaned my body back, but the cage kind of got in my way. But there were a few adjustments where I wish I would have had been able to finish that choke instead, because it's a much more rare thing. And like, not that you can pick and choose how you win fights, but that was something I had been really working on. And my coach kind of calls it the Rosa team. So I kind of like, we don't really know the name for it yet. So I was trying to kind of pull that one off, but it wasn't able to happen. So,
well, another quick, easy, well, I won't say easy, but another quick dominant win.
Yeah, I know.
3-0 now. right?
Yeah,
As a
one of the
pro.
things about that guy too that I thought was very interesting is, like, I know a lot of people are trying to tell me like, oh, you're beating these guys too quick, and I'm like, these guys I'm going against, like, y- you may think like, oh, some of their records or whatever, but like, they're no slouches. Like that kid, he just fought a bare knuckle fight, and he knocked the guy out in the first round, broke the guy's orbital. So like, as scare as like scary as I look when I'm fighting the guys, like, these guys I'm fighting are also monsters. So that's I try to, I know the level will step up and up and up as I try to advance, but it's these guys I'm fighting are also pro fighters who are really trying to hurt me. So yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what
Just
makes it even more impressive, my man. So you're 3-0 now as a pro. I
yeah.
mean, all first round victories. You must be feeling pretty good about yourself right now, early on in your pro career.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I didn't know exactly what the plan was, but I knew like once I started, my brother had kind of told me, once I became a pro, I won 9 fights in 18 months, and then I was in the UFC. So I kind of knew like as soon as this pro career starts, it might be a sprint. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm, I think savvy enough to be able to like, reach out to these promoters and lock down sponsors so that I can, make certain fights happen and or fund for certain fights. So like, and I think it's really been something special that I mean, it's been 4 months and I'm fighting, my fourth pro fight and within 4 months. It's been literally a summer. Someone joked that like you fit a pro career into a summer. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's that's how I like to do it though. When I was an amateur, I was one of the most active fighters in the country, with like 17 fights in 2 years or whatever that was. And so or 17 wins in 2 years. And yeah, I try to stay active. It's, this is my life. This is all I dedicate anything to. So I like to feel like I'm fighting and thriving all the time. So I'm trying to kind of fit maybe 4 or 5 fights into it before the end of the year. So that's kind of been my goal. So
Wow. Well, you're off to a great start. And, I wanted to ask you I guess, what areas you've evolved in the most, or what you're hearing from like your coaches and like your brother. Like, what has there been like a specific area where you just kind of made some big strides here?
I mean, there's been a lot of things like distance control and in striking and that sort of thing. And I think, realizing too, one of the things my brother always says is, and Coach Waggy always says, you always want to be in a position to be able to hurt someone. You never want to be like out of position at any time, So that's something I've learned a little bit more in the striking area. Like, um, instead of trying to be frantic and stuff, just always feel very controlled. But honestly, one of the biggest things has been like I've been working with Charles McCarthy a lot more, just like individually. I kind of, you know, uh, classes are great, but I feel like I've been trying to hone in on a little more specific things for me, and he's been great just teaching me like really how to violently finish people, and that's sort of what I think I took into my first pro fight. I'm like, I am finishing this fight. Like, there were a couple of my past few amateur fights, or the last few of them, even though I was fighting really tough guys, like the top amateur in Alabama, Louisiana for titles, and this other kid, Alexis Rivas, who is honestly one of the toughest guys I ever won against in any fight. Uh, like those guys, I felt after the fight, I was like, man, you really dominated, but you didn't finish the fight. And so I've been really trying to hone in on that. And I think one of the ways I've really picked up on that was trying to like emphasize jujitsu finishes and violent jujitsu finishes. So I've kind of been learning the way of Chainsaw Charles McCarthy, and that's why they used to call him Chainsaw, because he used to take people's limbs with him in the UFC. So that's that's what I think I've really like evolved most with. But yeah,
Yeah, okay. That's a perfect answer. I absolutely love it. So
yeah.
right now, Lucas, Dana White's Contender Series is going on. You seem like the perfect candidate. Obviously, I think you need to get a few more wins before maybe you're getting that call. But do you think this time next year that this is a real thing? Like maybe, you stack up a few more wins that you're going to be ready to take that next step?
Yeah, I mean that's something like I've always wanted. I kind of leave some of that in the hands of the people I trust, the coaches I have. Waggy, McCarthy, my brother Charles, obviously, and so I actually happened when I was at the Encore, like randomly. I think I was going to my cousin's wedding. My cousin Olivia had a wedding, and I was with Charles and we actually ran into Dana White, and I shook. It was my first time meeting him. I shook his hand, and he said, "Oh yeah, get a few more wins, maybe we'll get you on Contender." So it's one of those things where I'm like, that is a goal that I want. I want to be competing with the best guys in the world. And so I'm hoping, if I can stack up a few, and I think that's why too I've tried to accelerate this. I'm trying to make sure that I know how the UFC is. Like, I want to get in as soon as I can, pretty much. So, I obviously want to be ready when I get to that point. I want to be at a level where I feel like nobody could possibly beat me. But you do your best to. I know when the time comes, I'll be ready. That's really
Okay.
what it comes to. Yeah. So I'd like that timeline though. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And obviously, Lucas, this is such a brutal sport. I mean, you make one mistake in there, someone can put your lights out. But I mean, you have such a great team around you. Your brother was right there at the highest of levels. What are they telling you about your ceiling and how good you can be? Do they feel like, hey, you just got to keep at it, man, and you will be there. You will be in the UFC one day.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, they know in terms of like my work ethic, like how special that is, and just, the consistency I show. But that was a conversation I had with Charles too. He's like, you need to he's like, I think you'll get in the UFC and you'll be great, but like, you have to do a few things a little different than everyone else if you really want to put yourself different. Like, and that doesn't, you do show up to classes and you outwork anyone, but you have to have a few little specialties. And that's kind of what motivated me a little bit to, take on doing a lot more privates with people. Like I fixed my hook with this Philly boxing coach, Billy Patton, because of that. I've gone to this guy, Rami Hamed, who's was just on the Contender Series, who fixed my check hooks and a little bit more of a flow style. I obviously worked with Charles McCarthy to fix my jujitsu, so I'm trying to really hone in on those like little small 1% details, and working with like Waggy to get better cage takedowns, and how to set things up from the jab. And so every day I'm trying to work like those very specific aspects, whether it's just in classes or sort of even more evolving through the privates and stuff. And so they know, I think, that like where I can be. I think one of in a sense it's one of the best compliments I've ever gotten, but in another sense it's also kind of a funny thing they said. But my coach McCarthy one time sat me down and he said, look, honestly, Lucas, your progress has been from where you started has been unfathomable to me in the past 2 years. And in a way, it's kind of like I must have really been, not a good point when I came in. But I think he sees how fast I can grow. And that's one of the things I've always respected about myself is like, I know if you put me in a room with like 10 other people and you teach us all the same thing, like I think I'll absorb more and practice more and evolve more, through that knowledge faster than those other 10 guys if we're all being taught the same. So like that's sort of what I pride myself on. Yeah.
And how old are you now?
Right now I'm 28. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing about us too is I think, because Charles is a little older too, like we have very young genetics, honestly. Like Charles is 10 years older than me and he's, winning, regional titles like in first round back to back. So it's one of those things like I can't even grow really like a beard or anything. Like we have very young genetics, I think, honestly. We mature at a sort of later time.
Yeah, well, the best is still ahead. You mentioned your brother.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, man. He's the CES champ now. He's 4-0 since leaving the UFC. What
Yeah.
is he telling you about his goals moving forward? What is it that he wants to still accomplish?
I mean, I think, he seems like very comfortable where he's at right now, like in terms of um like fighting in the regional circuit and being able to, win these world titles and things like that. And I think one of the things that he's emphasized too is like, helping people. Like the first thing he did after he left, after he won his world title was he went and helped like the troops on this sort of combat tour mission thing where he could basically would help train them, do like, show up for different appearances with the UFC people. But so like, I mean, we have those conversations a little, but I think he wants to compete and be the best. I know he thinks that he can be the best in the world at the UFC level. And, I feel like he's proved that at the regional level. He tells me, he's like, none of these guys can beat me. You know what I mean? And so I know how high level he is. And, I know the structure of the UFC is a little different sometimes because the way the way they're kind of bringing in a lot more younger guys and things of that nature. So, but I think honestly he could easily be still competing in the UFC if he wants to do that, and if he doesn't, then that's really up to him. But it's one of those things, like we have these conversations, but I kind of try to gear him more as my coach, So
Sure. Understood. Let me ask you this though. Do you think if he doesn't sign back in with the UFC, do you think we're going to see him fight for PFL, Bellator? Because that would make a lot of sense.
yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, again, I'm not his manager. I don't have those sort of answers. I wish I haven't really seen him a lot, honestly, since the last fight. He went on that, like I said, that tour for a week. We came back, trained once, and then he's been like up in New England with my family, like really working on a lot of different other things. So it's been great, but I think he's actually coming back today. So I'm really excited to go train with him, watch some of the NFL games, hopefully. And then, then he's coming up with me back to New England actually in a couple of days. So
Very cool, man. Well, tell me, as far as training partners go to get you ready for this camp, anyone specific that could kind of emulate Bruce?
yeah, I mean it's tough. Bruce is like, a little different. He throws a lot of um kicks and that sort of thing, a lot of like spinning stuff, spinning back fists at least. I try to, yeah, I mean, honestly, I have a lot of really like safe partners at American Combat Gym who can kind of emulate that sort of thing. And then on top of it, it's I sometimes train at MMA Science with Roger Crarl, and I think he's really high level because he understands like a lot of the angles of things. Another thing that was pretty cool is I actually went to, and you can learn stuff from anywhere. I actually was in Canada at a sports ethics conference, and while I was there, I talked to this family friend who was actually he's a specialty in like Shotokan karate, and we spent a whole like 3 days just on kicks, like how to defend kicks, how the distancing of kicks, and you know, like I said, I'm like a martial artist at heart, so like I try to absorb knowledge whenever I can, even if it's just a small thing like, oh, aim with your knee, like that was something he showed me. Like there's very small things that I think that help, you just take a little piece of it and absorb it into the next fight. But yeah, so I mean I'm definitely emulating, I'm someone who watches film and I think it's very important to, have your partners do that. But yeah, I've been working with a lot of people. I have a my friend like high level brown belt Dimitri Ruddle and some other fighters from ACG Parker, and obviously my coach Matt Waggy emulates things sometimes. So it's been really it's nice to have a team that feels like they are family and they want to see you succeed, and not just, I feel like some of the other gyms sometimes it's like you go in and they almost want to use you as like uh a placeholder for one of their guys. They're using you to fuel their camp, and like, or they're, and so I like the special attention I get at ACG, as well as the high level, input, because you're getting the same treatment. You're getting like the level of UFC fighters, but they're more specific to you. So
Right. Makes sense, man. And this fight's back at 155, right?
yeah, so I mean, I always tell the promoters, I'm like, I'll fight, like, you can't make me go below 145, but I'll fight any weight, like, I'll fight anytime. Like, you just have to tell me what I need to do. Like, I'll make it happen. I remember when I found out about this fight, like I said, uh, my fiance Gabrielle Hulsey is an extremely smart, like, PhD student, and she got a paper accepted into this really prestigious sports ethics conference. So I was actually in Nova Scotia at a sports ethics conference in the middle of like a a sports lecture, a philosophy sports lecture, and I got the text like, "Oh yeah, this guy says he'll fight you," and I'm like, "Yes, 1,000%," So, yeah, I'm excited, but yeah, 155 is fine for me. It's crazy, yeah. I'm naturally not naturally, but like I like to fight at featherweight, but I've fought at I think 145, 150, 160, and now 155. So it's it's kind of been all over the place. But like I said, I'm an anytime, any place kind of fighter. So
What do you walk around at? What's the heaviest you get?
I mean, the heaviest I've gotten is maybe one. I will usually like if I'm fit and stuff, I can get to 173-ish, 174. But that's just because I have big legs. Honestly, I'm like I have big Rosa legs, but When I was in rugby, I was a 3-year rugby captain. First 3-year rugby captain in my school's history at Wheaton College, and I actually got to 208 at one point. So I've been like up and down before, but yeah.
Okay. I'd like to see a picture of you at 208. If you
Yeah,
have
I
one,
don't
you'll have
know
to
if
send
you
it to
want to
me.
see it. Well, it's funny. It's a funny story, actually. I remember there was the picture that I'll send over to you was my 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 dad. He does those polar plunges in the ocean for his charity, Chucky's Fight, and he asked me to come with him, and so I jumped in the ocean with it, and I didn't realize there was going to be a newspaper photographer there. So the next day, I see a picture of me coming out of the water on the front page in the Hampton Union, and I it's probably the worst picture of me possible. That was like the heaviest I've ever been, so it was fine, but it's one of those reminders, like yeah, you got to make sure you're always fit.
Yeah, it's motivation to just get back in shape, which you clearly did, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, you send me that picture. I want to see it. Let's talk a little bit
Sure,
about
sure.
Combat FC 8 again, September the
Yeah.
13th. This will be your third time fighting for the promotion. How do you like fighting for Joe and Rick and Combat FC?
Oh, they're amazing. I like Rick is like, in terms of like a promoter who gets back to you, is communicative. Like he's the best. Like I've really like, and it's cool, even like even just communicating with him. He's just a really really good person. And Joe Cav is the best. I think he used to be like manager a lot of fighters back in the day, and I think he had a really good relationship with my brother Charles too. And yeah, I mean, I love that show. Like I really like, especially the sort of like the Shriners Club is it's a big venue, but it's a small venue in a way. Like it's very not small but intimate. Like
Yeah.
you just like, I remember even back when I fought as an amateur, my cousins who went there was like, that was actually such a cool show. Like it was like so it's just it's very enclosed, and I love the way even like the lights look when you're walking out. Like it just feels so like regal in a way. So I really like I really like fighting for this promotion, and the fact that it's on like Swerve TV and UFC Fight Pass. Like anyone can stream it pretty easily. So, and like even on I get to say that I'm on TV. I get to
Yeah.
tell people I'm on TV, which is always a fun thing to say. So.
What kind of support do you expect to have come fight night? I know you're from the area. Do you have a lot of people that have bought tickets or that will plan to be there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a lot of people. It's like, one of the cool things too is about like, you're able to, I obviously part of fighting is you bring people together who would normally never really be there. Like is all these people from your life who maybe like the only other time you'd see them all together is like a wedding or like something like that. So the fact that I'm that sort of person, or I'm that sort of event that brings all these people from my life together, and all these like my uncle, my uncles and aunts, they love being there. My uncle Bobby, and like my uncle Paul and stuff, they're just like my uncle Tommy. It's so cool seeing all my cousins sort of you know really have that cathartic experience. And on top of that, it's like sort of like a full circle moment. You sort of realize the gravity of what you're doing. Like I started talking to like a couple old friends, my friend AJ, my friend Haley. Like they're people who I grew up with in my hometown, and now they're seeing me on Sports Illustrated and in these like wild venues as a 4-0 fighter. And it's really a crazy full circle moment in a way. So yeah, I'll have a ton of fans there. I'm hoping they're not getting sort of like exhausted because I'm fighting so frequently. I've fought like 3 fights in New England in the past 4 months now. So and one of them was Charles, and Charles as well has fought like I think 2 times in the past like 4 months there. So it's kind of, I'm hoping there's not like too much exhaustion there, but it seems like maybe it's just compiling to Rosa fever in a way. So
Yeah, well, they're just gonna have to get used to it because you're
yeah,
a very
exactly.
active fighter, and you'll be back
Yeah,
again real soon.
yeah.
This opponent, to me, it's interesting, man, because when you look at the records, he's 0-6. This is a guy you can't lose to. Do you
Yeah, yeah.
feel the pressure to go in there and not just beat him, but to look dominant?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel pressure to, like finish. I'm trying to go in there and like violently finish. And that's sort of the mentality I've had for all these fights. And some of the guys, like I said, were better than others. The last guy I fought was like 2-4 and coming off a TKO victory. And then now his last fight, he won brutally bare knuckle. And this guy, you know, his record, he doesn't look very good, but you know, I've looked at his amateur record. He has like 60 amateur fights, you know, maybe won like he has more. I mean, I was #1 amateur in the country and he has more amateur wins than me. So I don't, in a way, I'm kind of like, all right, well, so he has experience and he knows what it takes to win a fight. So, you know, you never try to overlook anyone. You know, I above my bed, I have, you know, my goals like, you know, laid out for me on the ceiling, like 4-0, you know, at all costs. And, you know, I, I don't know if that's what contributes to it, but, you know, I like wake up in the night sometimes, like dreams about like losing to my fights and stuff. And especially this far out from the fight, I always have those like, you know, thoughts. And so there is definitely a pressure, you know, you know, sometimes you lose a fight, you feel in a way like if I lose this fight, man, like who, like, is my career over? Like, you don't really know. And, um, I know there's been a lot of you know, pretty much every MMA fighter has lost a professional fight at some point. So it's not something you can't come back from. But yeah, like, you know, you feel a certain level of pressure, and it's not just about winning, it's about, you know, the striving for excellence. And so you want people to not only see that, you know, you're gonna win the fight, but that you're special in a way. And that's sort of what I've that's again, like you asked me like about that last fight. I was really happy the way I, you know, performed and finished in the first round, but there was a thing where I was like, man, I wish I had finished that like special Rosa team thing, because that would have been a really special different kind of thing. And yeah, so I mean, there's always, you know, pressures of like how you want to try to win, how you should win, but when you go in there, you really just gotta like focus and know that your time is come.
You know, you mentioned earlier he has like 60 something amateur fights. I noticed that
Yeah.
too, you know, prepping
Yeah.
to do this interview. So there's a lot of tape on him. Where is he most dangerous? Where do you have to watch out for Bruce the most here in this fight?
I think definitely like, I mean, there's certain aspects on the feet. Like, I think one of the things about fighting that is difficult is the unpredictability. Like, you don't, that's the thing about fighting, is it's so unpredictable. It's not like in football, you know, you step out of bounds, okay, well, the play's over. It's like, no, you step out of bounds, and in MMA, you make the wrong step, you're nights out, you know? So, uh, I think with him, it's that unpredictability factor of like he throws very, you know, uh very like naked kicks in a way where he'll just like whip them really fast. He'll throw like he'll kind of spam them in a row. He'll throw spinning kicks, you know, spinning back fists, you know. So that sort of thing is those things are like, you know, you if you're not paying attention, you could be going lights out. And so it's a little bit of a like it's a little bit more like volatile of a fighter. Like you're, you know, you might think that like he's weaker in certain areas, but he can also has the potential to be really really damaging in one specific area. So that's one thing. I noticed his guard is not bad too. He has a pretty good like close guard. So yeah.
All right. And you said earlier, you know, that you're expecting to finish this violently. Does
Yeah.
this get out of the first round? And if it does, are you going to be pretty upset about that?
Um. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to finish him in the first round for sure. But you know, it's you can never really like I said, it's so unpredictable. You can never really like say, but I mean, I would say I want to try to finish this fight in the first round. I mean, that's my goal. Is I think like, you know, to be able to say you have 4 first round finishes in 4 months is, you know, that'd be a really special thing. I think I don't know how many times that's happened in the history of MMA. So that's kind of like I'd say last fight was kind of almost a legacy fight in a way, because me and my brother were both fighting on the same card. But I think this is like, as my run keeps continuing and as it continues at this pace, you know, hopefully I'm keep sort of elevating that legacy.
And you know, with this upcoming fight with Bruce, I know you're totally focused on him right now, but when you look at other fighters to kind of create your legacy and get these wins as you get closer to maybe, you know, getting into the UFC, is there anyone that you'd like to fight regionally? Is there someone that you're kind of watching that you think, okay, this fight would really make sense down the line?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few guys my coaches always try to like, you know, give me certain names and stuff. I try to stay out of the shit talk online, so like I'm not really a troll guy, but like I, you know, I hear it. People are like, you know, different have different opinions of like, what you're doing, like how you're fighting, the people you're fighting. And to me, I'm just going in, like, I don't make those decisions. So I'm just going in there and like trying to annihilate. And like, that's one thing I'll say too, is like to any of these, the people who want to fight me or call me out or whatever, I'm just like, yeah, man, like you don't realize the level I'm at. You just don't. And you know, despite how you think I may be, handling my career, like I'm a menace to you, and you really don't want what I'm going to bring. So, um, I I have a few guys regionally. I think at some point I'd like to fight in Florida again. Just because it's sort of I think like South Florida is a really good test for me as well. It's one of the, I'd say, like meccas of MMA in the country and stuff. So I love Boston, and I love how the toughness of Boston, the character in Boston. But I think at some point I would like to have a fight in South Florida, hopefully sometime soon. But we'll see where it takes me. I don't make those decisions, but I'll just say, like, if anyone wants to get their face punched in, then they can come get it.
I love it, man. You're staying out of the trash talk. You're not giving any names. I think you're
Yeah.
you're going about things the right way. Well, we're all excited to see you back in there, man. Again, September the 13th, Combat FC 8. Lucas Rosa faces Bruce Richards, and he's looking to move to 4-0. Lucas, great talking to you again, my man. We got to do it again soon. Before we do sign off here today, I want to give you the floor. If there's any sponsors you want to plug, I know you have some, or anyone you want to thank, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'd like to thank all my sponsors. I have a lot for this fight, and you'll see them on the fight banner. You'll see them on fight shorts on Swerve TV, and it'll be great to see. And of course, I always want to shout out my family's charity, Chucky's Fight. They're like really important to me, and we help prevent substance abuse in the area. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's support, and Rosa Nation's going to show up.
All right, a couple of great interviews right there. Obviously, Brody McDougal and Lucas Rosa. Be on the lookout for both of their upcoming fights. A couple of real huge top prospects, young into their pro careers with exciting futures. Greg, as always, we're going to close out here. We're going to do some fight picks, another big UFC fight night going down this weekend, headlined by Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady. Really marquee matchup in the welterweight division. Right now, Gilbert Burns is the underdog, plus 160. Sean Brady is your favorite, minus 185. How do you see this one?
I forgot to have my Philly hat on, right, for Sean Brady, but I love Sean Brady. I'm not a big Gilbert Burns fan. I know he's good, but I'm going all the way with Brady, 100%. Like, I don't see him losing this at all. So, Sean Brady, I got him put in with a couple of parlays also.
Okay. So do you think he wins a decision, or is he going to finish Gilbert? Because that would be a massive feather in his cap if he could actually finish Gilbert Burns.
I think he's going to finish him. I think he will finish him.
All right. I mean, that's going to be interesting.
By sub.
By sub. All right.
Yes.
I might lean the other way. I feel like Gilbert Burns. I like that dog money. I know, Philly guy and everything, but I don't know. This is interesting. Seeing Sean Brady lose to Bilal. I mean, granted, Bilal's now the champion, but I mean, I feel like Gilbert Burns is still somewhat elite.
Oh yeah, he's definitely good. Definitely, a great fighter, and always shows up. But there's just something about Sean Brady. I really, and I'm looking at the Brady jersey in the background there. And you're going with Burns, like, I don't, yeah.
Okay.
Sean Brady, champions,
all right.
bro. I think he's on his way to. I think he's on his way to a champion. Being a champion. Sean Brady.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. That's your main event. Some great fights here. You look up and down the card. What other fights stand out to you from a betting perspective that you like?
Well, I do like Jessica Andrade, as my underdog for the evening. So what I have Steve Garcia, right? I really like Steve Garcia, Jessica Andrade, and Sean Brady to kind of wrap up my parlays for the night, the last three fights. And if you pick them, that's a 7.5 to 1. So $10 to get you 83.
Okay. So is that the only parlay that you have? Is there something else that you have going?
That's the only one I have. I'm staying away from a lot of things. I think Brandon Murat, local guy. I kind of know Brandon. I've called a bunch of his fights. Heavy duty plus 1,200. I'm not going to touch that. There's no money in attaching a parlay to that. I might at the last minute throw down some emotional money, if you will, on that and a parlay, like maybe Murat, Sean Brady, but I wouldn't expect it to hit. You know, it's such a huge underdog, but you know, if that happens, good for the East Coast and for Northeast MMA. You know, it'd be great, be fun to see, fun to watch. Be huge, but huge upset if that happens. Obviously.
Yeah. Isaac Delgarian right now minus 3,000 favorite is what I'm seeing, and Murat
Wow.
plus 1,300 on Bet Online right now. So yeah, that's, I mean, just there's no money there, so there's no point in really betting on that fight. It's unless you're
Yeah.
going to bet with Murat to pull the huge upset. So we'll see what happens there. I love Andre Petrosky to beat Dylan Buka. Petrosky minus 260 as the favorite. Wrestling heavy fighter there. I think is probably what he's going to do in that one. I feel the same way about Steve Garcia versus Kyle Nelson, although Garcia is a knockout artist. The guy's got dynamite in his hands. I think he could very well catch Kyle Nelson and finish the fight. One thing that's intriguing to me is, Cody Durden stepping up on short notice. Big favorite, minus 315 to take on Matt Schnell, plus 265. What do you think about that fight in the line?
I'd like Cody Durden. I like that. What do you think? I mean, Cody taking that fight short notice could help him.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a huge feather in his cap, and the UFC loves it when you step up and you save a fight. Schnell's opponent drops out, Durden steps in. So yeah, and this it's really interesting to see what happens because their styles are somewhat similar, but a little different. Schnell more of a striker. Durden, you know what he likes to do, wrestle, but he also prides himself on his striking too. So I'm excited about that fight. I think that's going to be an absolute banger. And then you look at a couple of veterans like Ryan Spann and Vince St. Preux. I don't know how much OSP has left in the tank. He's a pretty sizable dog here, plus 270. I do expect him to lose the fight, but I'd like to see maybe how he goes out on his shield. This very well could be his last fight in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's been around a long time, man. And yeah, I agree. I don't think he's got much left. I wouldn't bet that. I wouldn't take that dog. No way.
Any other fights that stand out to you from a betting perspective here?
No, not really. I mean, I do kind of like Chris Padilla, you know, as a straight up. Maybe bet those rounds with like bet Chris Padilla to probably, I don't know, Padilla by submission plus 550. That's some good money. And decision is plus 600.
Yeah.
So I might throw a little bit on that. Mix up a little, maybe a little parlay somewhere where I throw that in there.
Yeah, well, Chris Padilla right now plus 220 as your underdog. Zhu Rong minus 260 as the favorite. So just even from the betting lines, Padilla, you can make some money if you bet on him straight up or throw
Yeah.
him in a parlay. But another exciting card where we got this one, and then we get into UFC 306, right? Is it 306? Am I getting confused? 306.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's coming
Sean
out-
Miley.
Yeah, that's the one that's the one I was just out in Las Vegas in the Sphere.
That's right. Yeah.
Ridiculous. And they say it's going to be one of the best events ever. I
Yep.
can't wait to see it. I don't
Can't wait to
really,
watch it.
yeah, I don't really know what to expect, but I think there's a lot of surprises involved there.
Going to be fun. We'll have to make sure we get a big show next week and preview that one as well. So as always, great time talking to you. It's been a fun show. Thank you to Brody. Thank you to Lucas for joining us. Make sure you go follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Rusty Cage Podcast, and we will be back next week with another banger of a show.